Does anyone else love The Lord of the Rings? Well, today we're going to do sort of an introductory how-to tutorial video of how to play Battle for Middle-earth 2 in the modern era, specifically the Age of the Ring mod for Battle for Middle-earth 2, which is a total conversion that takes the game, reworks it, updates everything, upscales everything, adds everything you could ever want. It's incredibly fun. So 3 parts to this video: an introduction, how to get it, how to play it. First off, why should you care? Well, maybe you love Lord of the Rings. The game is chock full of flavor. You can play all kinds of iconic characters. There's really fantastic voice acting and all kinds of stuff. There's all sorts of amazing units and flavor in the game. You know, there'll be Balrogs fighting against your dwarvish armies. Smaug will come in and breathe fire on the men of Lake Town. The elves will show up with reinforcements to fight off the Uruk-hai. Is just everything that you love about the movies is in the game. Everything you love about the story of Lord of the Rings is in the game to make war with one another. It's so good. Maybe you just love RTS games. Well, I'm here to tell you, the game is fantastic from an RTS standpoint. We're running tournaments in it. We're setting up leagues and running leagues. We're viewing replays and evaluating the meta of the game and the top players and things. You know, this is a game that's almost 20 years old now, and it still feels fresh and exciting. And all the work that they've done in the mod here has really put it in a very balanced, very fun, competitive standpoint. With 11 factions to play, you've got a ton of different matchups, a ton of really interesting interactions to work through. From a competitive RTS standpoint, I think it's one of the best things you could be playing today. It's really good. Or maybe you just love free games, and that's fine, because this game is 100% free. It was abandoned, and the mod makers have breathed life back into it, and now you can just download it for free and start playing. We often look at old media and we say, you know, does this old thing hold up well in the modern age? Well, Age of the Ring mod for Battle for Middle-earth 2 holds up incredibly. It is so much fun. I could be playing anything in the world I wanted right now, but I'm still every day playing Age of the Ring mod, and it's so good. Let's talk a quick history. You know, Battle for Middle-earth 2 was a game that was released in 2006. It had really positive reviews. It got an expansion called Rise of the Witch King later that year, but unfortunately multiplayer servers for it were taken down around 2010. And things kind of languished after that for some time. But blessed are the mod makers. They've brought the game back from the dead, and not in the not too distant past from when this video was recorded, they've gotten to the point where we've got a single standalone download and launcher. You know, once upon a time you needed to find an old CD and make sure you had a functioning CD key and do some black magic voodoo to get things to work. These days it is as easy as download a file and start playing. You know, explicitly, how does it work? Super simple. You go to moddb here, not that one, this one. moddb.com, you search up the Age of the Ring. It used to be called the Horse Lords, so don't worry about that if the URL looks funny. You search up Age of the Ring, you want version 9.0 or later, I believe, and that puts you right with the launcher release. So it's a single file, you download the installer, you run it, you open it up, and easy peasy, it gives you a launcher that you can use that will update your game to the most recent version. And it also has a number of extra settings and things they've added to the game. You can turn on PvP modes to sort of reduce lag. You can add additional graphical options. You could add windowed mode to your game. You could put on house colors to make units easier to see in the scrum of things. It's just a really clean, streamlined product. The launcher is better than most modern launchers. The game runs better than most modern games in many ways. I can't say enough good things about it. So easy peasy to get the launcher running. If you have any problems with it, you can click on the little Discord button. That one launches you into the excellent community Discord where you have all kinds of things. They give you updates and previews about all the other stuff they're working on, additional sort of adventure, experimental factions they're adding to the game. You can get technical support here, bug reports. We talk balance. We run leagues and tournaments. We're talking strategy and all of the special competitive sections. There's a lot of really, really good stuff in the Discord channel, and indeed the community itself is very friendly, very welcoming. It's a lot of fun. All right, so that's how you get it. Oh, and one more, if you want to play multiplayer, there's actually an additional step, which is not too painful. If you go to the Age of the Ring wiki, you search up multiplayer, and it gives you another little step. If you want to go above and beyond and play multiplayer with other folks, now the game has a ton of single player content you could be playing. It's got campaigns and all kinds of like sandboxy battle modes and skirmishes against the AI. A lot of fun stuff you could do just by yourself. But if you want to play with other people, the best way to do that is through Game Ranger. Now remember I said the proper servers for the game were shut down, but there are a couple workarounds, Game Ranger or Radmin here. These are sort of ways to trick the game into thinking you're on a network with other people so you could play over as if you were on sort of a local area LAN network with your buddies. But you can do this with anyone in the world. It's quite easy to set up. You just follow these easy, 10 steps here, and you'll be good to go. No problem. And that's the how to get it. How do we actually play? Well, it's got its own unique quirks and things. It's an RTS game and a damn good one at its heart, but it does things a little differently, and I'll show you some of them. So first of all, the game is mostly about controlling area, and the reason it is because your basic resource structures have this big circle around them and a percentage. You can see in the middle that green 100%. If it's at 100% or even 97 or higher, it's going to give you the most resources per tick as possible. But if you get crowded in next to your other structures, the percentage goes down. So we want to be building our resource structures spread out across the map. That will give us more income. So like we have one built up here. If we look in at this, it should tick it's like every 6 seconds or so. Unless I'm crazy. Am I not seeing it? There's one. Go on. Couple of seconds pass, boom, there's it's blue here, 31, a little pops up here. So every once in a while, your farms and stuff that you've spread out across the map are paying you out money. So part of the game is area control. You're spreading out around the map, taking up more space by building more farms out in the world. And then another part is trying to prevent the enemies from having their space in the map, right? So the goal to win the game is to destroy all of the opponent's production buildings. You start with your main fortress, and then you build other production buildings like barracks or stables or archery ranges. And if you destroy everything that can make units from somebody, then they're out of the game and you win, right? Not too complicated. Placing farms and spreading out on the map also increases your command point limit up to 1,000, and that's how many soldiers you could have on the field at one point. You can get quite large armies. It's pretty cool. You can get some very cinematic battles going on here. Production structures you are often placing nearby your farms because it's such a critical thing to destroy the enemy's infrastructure that if you build your barracks sort of along the edge of a farm here like that sort of guards that side of the farm. Barracks and production structures have a lot more hit points and armor to them. And they also passively generate little soldiers that will wander around and fight to defend as well. So we build our production structures next to our farms to keep them safe. We build our production buildings in order to make the soldiers that we need. You could train swordsmen out of them, we could train spearmen out of them. There are also really unique production structures for every race. Some people, like the dwarves or the goblins, can make mines where they could load troops in and teleport them and basically teleport them. You could load them into one mine and unload them from another mine across the map, right? So you can have some super fast travel. Some structures some people like the elves grow trees that turn into their barracks and their other structures and things like that. There's a lot of faction variation. But the gist of things is you're expanding around the map and you're gaining territory. You're making production buildings to train soldiers that you could use to fight for stuff. And the most important thing to know about when it comes to the actual combat of the game is the sort of counter system, right? You have sort of you at your basic level, you've got swords, you've got spears, you've got bows, and you've got cavalry, right? Your swords are your general purpose. Swords will beat spears. Spears will beat cavalry. Cavalry will beat archers and also swords, actually. So the thing to know is that if cavalry are riding through units, and you don't even have to attack with them, if a mounted unit just passes over an enemy unit, you'll trample them, you'll knock those units down. And trampling does a lot of damage, so a cavalry charge is devastatingly powerful. It could come in and just wipe out a line of infantry. So you have to be extremely careful. But if cavalry run into a spearman unit, they die almost instantly. There's sort of a revenge damage where if cavalry hits spears, the spears do automatic damage back to the cavalry and kill them very quickly. So spears are a very hard counter to cavalry. Cavalry is a very hard counter to swords and archers and things like that. Then there's also gets a little more complicated because you're adding things like monstrous trolls in and hero units that are sort of single entities that are much, much stronger than the things around them. So the role of hero units in the game are quite interesting. They're very expensive. They're very fragile. Not very fragile. They can be killed relatively easily if they're by themselves, or if the opponent is able to focus on them. But they work as force multipliers. A lot of heroes have auras called leadership, where everything around them gets a certain bonus. So we can see Denethor here, for example. All allied units near Denethor gain 25% more armor. Okay, so if you mixed Denethor in with your army, he's going to make everybody in the army have more armor, be much harder to kill. Right? So you keep an eye on Denethor because you don't want him getting killed. He's very expensive and valuable, but when he's with your troops, they're suddenly all much stronger. So heroes are a way to sort of scale into the late game, a way to multiply the strength of your army. But if someone were to kill Denethor, he costs like 2,000 gold, whereas, a swordsman here costs 200. So he's very valuable, Denethor or any hero that you've added to your force. So heroes are something you have to be very careful about, and they also have a number of abilities that they get over time. Denethor here can use his Stone of Anarion to sort of look into the fog. He can also sort of remove leadership from enemy units, all kinds of things like that. There's really a shocking amount of abilities on everybody that they get as they level up, or that even basic units in the game can unlock different things like different formations. You can unlock different upgrades for them. But we're getting too complicated. Let's go back to our basic counter system. You make a varied force because you need cavalry. You need spears to keep the cavalry away. You need cavalry to kill the swords and the archers. You need swords and archers to be the bread and butter to cut through the enemy's spears and swords and archers and things like that, right? Makes sense. The other thing to keep in mind is both, all the units and heroes will level up by killing enemy units, and leveling up will unlock more power and abilities for them. You also have ring points. If you kill enemy units, you will gain ring power over time, and these numbers will add up, and you will spend this ring power to unlock different abilities in this tree. And you can see you'll choose the way you go down the tree, right? Maybe you pick up the captain's horn here, and then after that you could go for Numenorian engineering, which will give you a trebuchet, or you could go for the Sworn Allegiance, which will give you a drastically reduced recruitment time and things like that. So part of the strategy of the game is choosing how you want to move through this tree to get the most benefit in your matchup, or just making sure that you're fighting and going about your matchup with the opponent in a way that you're earning more ring power than they are, so you're unlocking some of the stronger level abilities. And they get absolutely crazy. Down here, the Messengers of Manwë summons a bunch of giant eagles to the field that will swoop down and kill everything. Or the Return of the King, you get a super-powered King Elisar comes on the field, who is like the strongest hero in the game, basically, can sort of fight and permanently for you. The later parts of the ring power tree are extraordinarily powerful. So gaining ring points efficiently is one really important way to play the game. Let's see, there's also the one ring itself can be turned on or off. It's usually turned off in competitive play, but if it's turned on, there'll be a little golem who's running around the map somewhere, and if you find him and you grab the ring from him and bring it back to your fortress, you'll unlock a superhero like Sauron or Frodo. Sauron obviously is a super powerful combat character that can single-handedly fight entire armies. Frodo is a relatively weak character, but his presence will inspire the good armies of good so powerfully that they will be nigh invincible when you have the ring under your control. So really fun, really flavorful stuff. And the last things I wanted to talk about really were sort of the flow of competitive play. You know we make units to fight stuff and get out in the map and get into some trouble. How does an actual match work? Well, typically when you're fighting against the AI or another player mostly, because the AI cheats a little bit, so harassment doesn't work on them as much. When you're fighting a game against another player, the most important thing you could do is to deny them space on the map. You want to be running your soldiers over there and you want to be attacking their farms and things. You burn down their farm, they lose the money that they used to build it, they lose the income that it gets, and you're more the richer for having denied them income and cost them money. So we see often a push and pull between both sides of who can do the most economic damage to the other. But you also keep in mind that you don't want to lose too many of your men by trying to attack the enemy as well. It's really important to deny him the ability to gain more resources. But if you're throwing your men away fruitlessly, you're kind of losing more resources than you're denying him. Or maybe you're feeding him more experience or more ring points or more experience for levels for his heroes. So his heroes are leveling up and unlocking their harder abilities. So you have to be very careful in your competitive play where you don't want to give the enemy, you want to punish the enemy while not giving up too much to them at the same time. It's very common for someone to be on the back foot and look like they're getting beaten down, but actually they're gaining strength in other ways via ring power or experience in their heroes and things, and they're able to make a powerful comeback and knock the enemy out before they were expecting it. There's a number of really interesting competitive opening builds. It matters a lot of the buildings you choose to make at the start of the game. You know, how much do you invest in building new farms early in the game before you start building new barracks in order to train your troops? Which one do you build? Do you try to go into early infantry? Do you try to go into early cavalry? If you opened up with cavalry, then you'll be able to run down the enemy's infantry, unless they opened up with spears, which will counter your cavalry, and you won't have anything that can do it. You won't be able to really harm, your cavalry won't be able to harm spears in any way until you get some, archers or swords or other things in the field that can fight the spears. Your cavalry are so hard countered by the spears, you've got to find other ways to make use of them, right? So there's a number of really interesting competitive play variables at work here. So we often talk about openings. We often talk about the value of trades. How many units did you lose to complete that thing that you were just doing? Maybe you lost 400 gold worth of soldiers, but you blew up 2 farms. That's a good trade for you. The farms are more expensive. You did more damage to him than he did to you in that. So a ton of shifting meta and shifting strategies in the competitive play. It's a lot of fun. And then finally, the last thing I've got for you is some tips and tricks for new players. Really, nothing here is rocket science. None of these factions are unplayable or wildly overpowered. Tier lists are fickle, ignore them. The game is well balanced. Pick a couple factions that you like and just play them for fun and focus on learning what the different units and abilities do. Hotkeys are really important. You really want to make sure you are putting your barracks and your different unit productions on different hotkeys so that when you are out and about doing combat and battle, you can pull up barracks and make the different units that you need. The other thing that's really important is making sure that you make enough units. A lot of the game has many factions have rather flat technology trees. You can kind of start making really expensive units right off the bat. And you don't always want to be able to do that. It's very easy to make like a single unit that's very powerful rather early, but you're going to get overwhelmed by an opponent who made many units that were just sort of more cost effective. So you want more cheaper units early on, and then over time, as you move into more of a mid-game, you can level up your structures to higher levels to unlock higher tiers of units. But not too soon. You want to make sure you're making full use of your lower tech stuff. Making heroes is incredibly important, but only if you keep them alive, right? Remember we talked earlier about how expensive they are? Heroes are critical to multiplying the strength of your armies and scaling into the late game with a lot of the power that they provide. You know, a lot of your men are going to die here. There's going to be a lot of casualties. Ideally, your heroes, however, are living through the fights and getting stronger over time. So as your Lamadon clansmen go into the meat grinder, hopefully Boromir lives and can bring back that knowledge and start the next fight even a little stronger than he was last time. Heroes, super important, but only if you keep them alive. And last of all, the only other advice I really have for you is keep an eye on the wiki if you actually really like to learn to be better. The wiki is actually an amazing section for learning more information about the game. Every unit and every faction, every hero in the game has a little blurb on the bottom of strategy that sort of tells you how, the idea behind the design of this unit or this faction, right? So you can look at a March Warden. Maybe you look at a March Warden in the game and you're like, I'm not really sure. It's a swordsman archer. What is it supposed to be? What am I supposed to do with this? Well, if you look at the strategy, they'll tell you the March Wardens are meant to be the most powerful units because they have very high stats and versatility. So reading through the wiki is a really great way to learn the different abilities, the different upgrades, and the idea behind the units so you know how to play them properly. And that's it. That's probably too much. I've given you an awful lot to look at, to think about, but I really, really think you should give Age of the Ring a chance. So fun, so good. We're playing tons of it these days, and it's free. You got nothing to lose. It's very simple, very easy. It is an incredible Lord of the Rings experience, even some 20 years later. The mod team for Age of the Ring has done such a fantastic job with it that I'm having so much fun, and I think you will too. Thanks for watching. That's all I've got for you today, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in game.